said, Gabe and Ashley, lots of coffee today. I feel a little jittery. But anyway, welcome to episode 1 of season 6. I can't believe it's been 6 seasons of the podcast, Unlock Growth. In this episode, we're going to dive deep into the strategic evolution of modern marketing orgs. Not just doing more with less, but redefining how work gets done. We're going to explore how my guests today, Ashley and Gabe, super appreciate you taking the time, are using AI, signal-based targeting, and preparing organizational upgrade to turn their SOPs into AI agent-powered systems, enabling scale, personalization, which I hear over and over again, and productivity beyond human limits. Gabe and Ashley, welcome. And I'm not going to sing your praises. Instead, because it's a long list, I'm going to instead link below to your LinkedIn profiles. And before we dive into the heavy stuff, and we got quite a bit of that, let's do some light. Oh, we're going to start with you, Ashley. What's something that's become an unexpectedly delightful part of your CMO routine?
Yeah, one of the things that I have made a point to include in my daily, weekly routine is holding skip level one-on-ones across the entire team. I think it's really important to connect with everybody on my team regularly. And I do it monthly. So I meet with the majority of my team on a monthly basis, and just being able to have informal time to listen, learn, and stay close to the energy on the ground has been incredible. There's so many ideas and celebrations of wins and inspiration that's come from just more connection. It's just a reminder for me of how, powerful and how I marketing can be with a connected and inspired team.
Well said. Gabe, what about you?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I feel like for the last while, there's been so much emphasis on demand marketing that sometimes I feel like I was getting more siloed in that. And I've loved this transition more to brand type stuff, whether that's how do we get our name out there and how do we quantify it? And actually at a board meeting, it came up and I was challenged, like, how do we do more brand stuff? I don't know if everybody knows what that means, but I just love the transition of that talking point. So rather than just focusing on demand, we're more interested in more of a brand led demand focus. So I've liked that. I've liked it.
Gabe, if you don't mind just illuminating the difference between the two, although most of our audience do know, but sometimes knowing and just hearing a very simple explanation, I'd love that.
Yeah. I was trying to actually come up for our team here a definition of brand so that we could all agree on something, because I think there was a little bit of a difference there. And this is what we all agreed on. Brand is the legacy we leave in every conversation we're not in, whereas demand is the pipeline created that ultimately the sales team can close. And those are so intertwined, I think, these days. But again, one is a little more easy to measure and metric, and the other, I think, is a word that oftentimes has taken on a meaning of billboards in Times Square and fancy, metrics that don't mean anything to anybody. And so I think people are starting to change their tune a little bit and try to find a way to bring those together in new and exciting ways.
Well said. I imagine if you bring into a room marketers and you ask them what a brand is, almost the start of a joke. How many marketers would it take? And Ashley, just want to jump back to you for a minute. Skipping those one-on-ones, that's got to be illuminating and providing great discoveries. I don't want to take too much time on it, but it got me thinking, is there one that comes to mind, or maybe the types of discoveries that you're making in those meetings, just for those that are listening, to give them the, hey, this is worth the time?
Yeah. And we're going to get into this, further, I think, in the conversation, but AI, there is an individual on my team that is really excited about AI, and they were a champion of it. But without having these one-on-ones, I just didn't get close enough to kind of what are the key challenges that people were having. Where are we getting stuck? Where do we want more efficiency within the organization? So having these one-on-one conversations really brought to life this individual's excitement around AI, what they think we could be doing. And coming out of that individual has been leading the AI innovation within our team, put the project together, did a lot of analysis of different vendors, and has been championing the onboarding within the team. So it's just a great opportunity for us to build more exposure and just learn about what people are excited about.
finding those early adopters and then helping their voices be heard. That's super cool. All right, I'm going to resist the urge to go deeper. So over the past 2 months, I've connected with 65 or so B2B growth leaders. I got to say the rate of change, it's like legitimately accelerating. I almost feel like week to week it's accelerating. Jeff, who you both have met, our head of product, says to me, "Hey, Adam, we can't work like it's 2024 anymore." And I feel like now he's going to say we can't work like it's March anymore, or it's going to be last week anymore. So, I mean, legitimately fire hose of information, technologies, capabilities. You've both grown and restructured your teams, right? And again, same head of growth. Jeff is in my ear almost every day. He's like, "Adam, is activity leading to accomplishment?" Yeah. What were the biggest shifts you've made to move from activity to performance? We'll start with you, Gabe.
Yeah. Look, I think this is always an ongoing debate because I do think both are like, there is room for both there, but I think the word shift is right. And, I think for us, it was actually sitting down and having a real conversation about it. Like, we need to kill the random acts of marketing and not just focus on the blog posts and how many emails went out. And I do like to get into the weeds, and so stuff like that does matter. But I think just really cognizantly talking through it with the team was like a big first step. The second big step was like a compensation realignment. And I do own kind of the marketing, BDR, and partnership teams. And as we think about kind of more of a holistic marketing organization. And when we moved away from saying, "Hey, we're going to be basically spiff people on your sourced pipeline or maybe core KPIs for your organization," and move it down funnel to like shared revenue goals, and we became more obsessed with outcomes. I thought that was kind of the second big part. Like it is hard to take a demand gen leader and say, "I'm going to basically not just pay you on created pipeline or something like that, but I'm going to shift you down funnel." Same with a partner marketing person. But boy, the mindset did shift when we kind of went into that action. So those are the two things that come to mind for me.
Our producer, Jackie, I saw her smile when you said random acts of marketing. Guilty as charged.
Hey, I love them. I love how many podcast listens, how many people liked or commented. They're fun.
But there's something to be said about creating this holistic view, marketing to sales and owning outcomes. And I'm seeing more and more of that, although it seems radical for many organizations. Ashley, what about you? What shifts have you made or are thinking about making?
Yeah, it's such a great question, honestly. For us, it's redefining what success looks like. I think for a lot of even my career, the success has been in content volume and campaign counts and MQL counts. But shifting what success looks like for us meant really shifting the anchor around the same aligned goals that sales has. So pipeline, revenue, and ROI have become our anchor point. And to do that, there was a few different changes we had to do. One was restructuring the team. It was the first thing I did when I joined this organization, and I did it quickly, is realigning the team to focus on the go-to-market strategy and the buyer journey, building better, tighter accountability within channels. So there's a single point of accountability versus shared accountability, which can be good sometimes. But, for example, our website was owned by a handful of people. Everybody had their hand in the pot, but nobody owned the website. And so there wasn't really a single point of accountability on why conversion was going down or why it was going up. So building a single point of accountability was really important. And then, creating clarity and unified goals across the team. So anchoring, I always have this kind of principle or process of having 3 to 4 key marketing objectives that everyone is anchored to. It's, I anchor them to what I call big rocks. So those are the only, 3 to 4 things we're focused on for the year. Everything that we do ties up to those 4 rocks. If you're doing something that doesn't tie to a rock, then we deprioritize it. I talk a lot about ruthless prioritization within my team and making sure that we just focus on what really matters and is going to drive impact. And that the third thing that I'll say tied to this is I have a phrase I use a lot internally around what gets measured gets managed. And so if you're not measuring the right things, it's not going to get managed. And so anchoring the team on pipeline has been a huge shift for us because we were measuring some of the other touch points like number of downloads, number of social influences, number of leads, but a lot of that didn't drive pipeline. So anchoring us to the right type of engagement metrics is really important.
You can easily get lost in data points, completely overwhelmed. But I want to go just a little bit deeper, because saying yes to things, to just a few things, creating this level of simplicity can't be easy. And those marketers that are listening who have a clear line of division between them and sales are like, how did you do that? I mean, so where's that? Where's that handoff? Where's that line? Or maybe in your case, Gabe, you had mentioned that BDR team is in your zone. So maybe let's go to you, Gabe, first.
Yeah.
Is there a clear line from you to sales?
Yeah, look, I think this has been the old way of thinking, where we're doing kind of the baton passing from marketing to BDRs to sales and success ultimately. I think this is one area that you're going to see AI really help transform that, because every time you have that manual handoff, you get a lot of problems. But I do think there is still a gap in that world. And I think the quickest way to be able to solve some of those gaps is to try to realign those compensation and those goals. That we've all been in an organization where a BDR team raises their hand because they got a lot of pipeline this quarter and then none of it closed. And you're like, wait a minute, that something about that doesn't feel right. And so it's hard, and it can be a little bit odd to start off in this world, but the more you can just set the record straight and be like, revenue is what we want as an organization, pipeline is an input. And when you're talking about comp, maybe there's some sort of split, but you have got to eliminate some of that friction and get a team mentality. And if one person's paid on pipeline and one person's paid on revenue, I mean, my experience just means that it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. So managing around that, I think, would be pretty important. And one way to do that is to align on those core outcomes and just say, we have got to find a way to get to revenue, and then I'll look at the process and see how we can get those handoffs to be as clean as possible.
You mentioned comp twice. Like, that's when things get real, right? You're not talking vanity metrics. You're aligning the bottom line.
Well, that's it, man. I have tried so many times to come up with SOPs of like, here's how we define a stage 0 or stage 1 opportunity, and here's what pipeline means and doesn't mean, or here's what an MQL means and doesn't mean. And I don't know, until they sign the check, until that name's dried on the contract, that seems to be the only thing that really is black and white. And so I'm not saying you can go 100% there, but man, the more you can get your teams talking about closed won revenue, particularly net new, I think for a lot of organizations, which is an interesting conversation of itself, but the rest of it can be part of it. But man, if you anchor on closed won revenue, it certainly changes people's mentality, I think.
All playing the same game. Ashley, any reactions from you there?
No, I mean, Gabe and I, it sounds like we're in a lot of the same thinking, which makes sense why we're both here today. Is I think we're aligned in a lot of ways. I think it is just really important to align, the go-to-market. And that's something that I've focused on a lot here is breaking down that barrier between sales and marketing. That was, I know, Adam, what you were asking earlier on was like, where does that handoff happen? And I really am trying to anchor the team around viewing us as one team, marketing and sales, like a go-to-market function, not sales versus marketing, and doing that with shared unified goals, with shared plans and programs, with reporting, like just making sure that we're all rowing in that same direction versus marketing have one goal and objective and sales have a different. So treating it as one unit. And the other thing that I think has unified us a little bit is getting my marketing organization to really think full life cycle and get away from just top of funnel marketing, but think of the entirety of the journey. Marketing's job doesn't stop at the MQL handoff. It continues through MQL, multi-threading down into opportunities, down into that closed one and beyond. So getting the team to understand that full life cycle has been important too.
A perfect entree where I'd like to zoom in. Before I do, just a little context. I had a huge duh moment, like one of those where, we think about our own organization, we think about MQLs, and we've had a lot of pain from an MQL to an SQL, from every question, from who owns it, what technology, what's the SOP, you name the question we've asked. And for some reason, I thought we were kind of alone. We're a marketing organization. And then we started this season 6 research Would you believe 90% of B2B leaders have said this is one of their top priorities, usually top 3, for many the single top priority. Ashley, you had said in our pre-interview that you've talked about volume without conversion. What's breaking the funnel today and how do you fix it? We're going to begin to go from maybe even the current state to begin to wonder, because I don't think anyone has nailed. There's, of course, various degrees of how good it is. But Ashley, let's talk about the conversion gap.
Yeah, this is my number one challenge right now for me. So this is very top of mind. I've had a lot of meetings about this topic recently around what's breaking. One thing that we've recently done is created an internal, I'm branding it. I'm a marketer. I'm branding it. I'm calling it Project Dead Zone. It is the land of the lost, the dead zone between marketing, MQL, and SQL. It's the land of the lost. Things come in, and then all of a sudden we're like, where did it go? What happened? Why is it not pulling through? So, step one, definitely creating this aligned, focused, urgent program across the team, Project Dead Zone. But additionally, it's, starting with understanding and asking the what I call the 5 whys, really trying to understand why, repeatedly asking, okay, it's MQL conversion is down. Why? And then continuing to get down into the 5 whys of what's going on. So what we have found, and probably similar to a lot of organizations, is volume versus quality. We have nearly doubled our MQL count in the last quarter. If I was focused on activity, that's great. What a number to show in a board deck. But we're only showing our hand raiser volume and also our opportunity rates growing at a fractional rate. So things are getting lost in that conversion rate. And one thing is, as our volume increases, if our quality of, say, hand raiser volume doesn't increase proportionally, it's going to create a gap, and therefore marketing campaigns have to drive a lot more volume, which convert at a lower rate. So what I'm finding is we're driving a lot of volume that are coming from lower conversion, lower engaged channels like virtual events and podcasts. We do a great job of driving volume there, but they're not necessarily buyers. So that's been a challenge. There's certainly what I would consider a lot of drop-off points in our journey where marketing drives a ton of volume of leads, and statistically we know about 70% of them won't become an MQL if you believe 30% of leads convert to MQLs, which means 70% drop on the ground. Right now, we don't have a really tight process for how do we continue to nurture those forward and make sure things don't drop on the ground. Same with MQLs, etc. So there's all these cliffs that keep happening, and it's for us to really identify where are the cliffs, where are those points of failure within our full life cycle prospect journey, and then build visibility around that with data. How do we better understand why this is happening, where the handoffs happen? It's a mixture of many things, but is it quality? Is it process? Is it behavior? Is it system? And a lot of that are things that we're currently focusing on, and I could spend a whole hour talking about this topic.
Oh, we're going to get there. We're going to try to get to the best stuff in a second, Ashley. Before we do, Gabe, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of stuff Ashley was talking about resonates to me. I think as we look at our funnel, I think what one of the things we're seeing is that there's so many window shoppers right now. I think, we play in a space where AI is part of the conversation. And so a lot of people are taking meetings or downloading stuff, and they're not really buying yet. They're trying to educate themselves. And so one of the challenges we've been trying to tackle, it's not Project Dead Zone, although I love that, it's project, how do we get somebody from interest to commitment, basically, because a lot of people in the top of the funnel, but then when they kind of see it, they're like, hey, we want to back off and maybe look at other solutions. They're kind of trying to continue to educate. So how do we take that general education or interest and turn it into commitment? Because, some of those numbers through the funnel just aren't where we want them to be.
So if I could do sound effects, I'd probably do something from Star Trek. Let's go where no one has gone before, if I could. And for those who are listening, you can see Gabe and Ashley are kind of the tip of the spear in terms of how they're thinking about it. And we just honed in on Project Dead Zone, We didn't have that name. We now have a name. Thank you, Ashley. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw some theses out, and then I'm going to bounce between the two of you of how would we solve this. I'm going to suggest to you how I'm thinking about it, and let's ideate at the highest level together. We don't have 5 hours, although that'd be cool with a whiteboard. We're going to do this quickly at the highest level. So let me tell you how I'm thinking about it, and then I'll ask for your feedback, and we'll see where this goes. I have no idea. We're now in uncharted territory. So here goes. Project dead zone, right? 30% of the folks moved forward. In Ashley's analogy, 70% did not. Okay, they're not ready. Understood. They're in your database. The conventional way of thinking about it is a newsletter, maybe some retargeting, and here sales folks go after them. Okay? An ideal SOP, and this is where I'm going to outline something for you, is what I've been thinking, and I'd love you to add more. Almost includes 2 dots on opposite extremes. The first dot is their world. What's changing in their world? What's relevant in their world if you were to reach out to them? That's one dot. My opinion, because today everyone is completely overwhelmed and avalanched. Unless something is happening, you're reaching out to me, I get 95 emails in the last 2 minutes. The other dot is what did you create in terms of content or value? Why are you reaching out to me right now? So I'm going to take a little pause before I continue. In my endless hours of thinking about this, this is the 2 dots. I've distilled it down. It's totally cool if you're both like, this is terrible, or you would think about it differently. Let's innovate together. Which one? Which one for? I just threw some stuff out there. So.
And you're Adam. This is specifically on like the top of funnel. Then you're saying it is an MQL. 30% move, 70% don't. How do we deal with that? Is that
exactly project dead zone, mid funnel, the top funnel? They came in, and now they're in this mid funnel where they disappear. Bermuda's triangle. If they didn't move, there's no process to get them back. What would the process be?
One thing, Ashley, I'm going to jump in, but you feel free to tag on. For us, I can say one of the things we've seen is a large number of people we're not able to get a hold of. So they do, let's say they come in through some sort of call to action. Could be a demo request on the further end, but it could be just a download content piece on another end. But they're not moving forward. But one of the reasons they're not moving forward is we can't ever get to the next step with them. And so one of the things we've tried to kind of double click on, especially with the higher volume call to actions, is that how fast do we respond concept. A lot of that old data, if you get to somebody quickly. So we've tried to have BDRs follow up on hotter leads. We've tried some of the tools that allow people to directly schedule, like if you're interested to learn more, dive deeper into this report or a demo or whatever. We've tried some of that. The next step we're going to be using is some AI agents to see if we can offer a real-time phone call, right then and there. You talk to not a dumb chatbot, that's not what I'm talking about, but a voice-enabled AI agent that can basically answer all your questions about said CTA. But boy, when I see some of the numbers on we're not able to get a hold of them, rather than go into the nurture track, which is can you more personalized type of information? I'm I know they were interested at that moment and I'm not able to get them again. How do I double click on that moment and get more people right there to maybe talk to me or interact with me in a more structured way? So that's one thing I've been thinking about.
A lot of goodness in there. A lot of similar thoughts as well. The 2 things I'll double click on is one. I think, Adam, your thought around the 2 dots is something we have talked about. I'm not framing it in that same way internally, but we have been talking about creating more specific segments based on the intent that's coming in. So those that we know, we're one of the largest thought leaders in our space. We know that we have so much industry knowledge and tenure that people come to us when there's regulatory change or for anything that's happening in the market. We know that. And so just because somebody's downloading a ton of content and looking at a lot of our webinars doesn't mean they're ready to buy. So let's put those educators or just kind of thought leader type people into one bucket, and let's not push them the same as we would push somebody that's showing more higher intent purchase behavior, and make sure we create kind of those 2 clear delineated work streams based on that. So that's something that we're actively conversating on internally. The other thing is lowering the barrier to entry. And I think that, Gabe, you talked about this a little bit around kind of like web chat and using AI and time to touch. Like that is something that is a challenge of how hard are we making it for people to request a demo, get a hold of us, schedule time with sales. I did a kind of a secret shop of all of our competitors recently where I went through the demand process and filled out forms and saw how long was the time to touch, how quick did people get on there, how quickly did I get a human on a chat, how quickly did these things happen. And we ranked pretty poorly in terms of the barrier to entry. It was a very traditional fill out a form and then sit and wait. You're waiting in the abyss of like, maybe someone will call me, maybe they won't, I don't know how long. And a lot of our competitors are more aggressive in their approach. The barrier to get a hold of them is a lot lower. So I think lowering the barrier is also an important thing. And Gabe touched on a lot of that.
So we've identified, the 30% move forward. How many percent can we grab by accelerating our time to getting them in conversation? And that could be done in various ways. Before we move further down the rest of them who can't be gotten in that moment, I do want to, Gabe, you said the words AI agent. Interestingly enough, I've been asking every conversation, can you tell me what an AI agent is? Over and over and over again. And I've gotten a lot of answers. This could be the same joke of what is a brand. You bring a bunch of the same would be what is an AI agent. When you said AI agent, what do you mean by an AI agent?
I've been in its most simple term, I've been using the term, moving from support to staff. When I think of an AI agent, I think a lot of people talk to me about co-pilots and little things that help me do my job better. And when I think of an AI agent, I think it's staff. It is a staff replacement concept of something that is obviously AI driven, and it's a person who takes over a function rather than just improves, helps, or co-pilots a function.
Ashley, would you agree?
Yeah, I would.
So for the listeners, if you've seen the trailer for this season and if you've seen the update, we're going to refer to an AI agent as a digital employee with access to tools and ability to reason through those tools. And we're in some respects, there is a question of replacement, but in this moment, over the foreseeable future, in my opinion, there's going to be a lot of human in the loop for a very long time. I think we're at a stage where SOPs can now turn into AI agents, and the human now is elevated with their ability and their creativity. So what I'd like to do next in the project Dead Zone, 30%, let's say you can get another 10%. Yes, Ashley, we're just going to keep this from now on. This will be
Ashley, you're famous. You need to trademark that. This
too late.
Honestly, I love this because I'm in the middle of this. So any ideating between the three of us is helpful for me right now.
You'll take it. I love it.
So 30% moved forward. Let's say we can get another 10%, right? We're at 40%, right? Just for now. There's a 60% left. Based on the two dots I had presented below, the first dot is, let's call it signals in their world, right? For your product and service, how do you think about signals where you could show up as being relevant, a reminder of what you do? Is that a part of your internal conversations? And if it is, totally cool if it's not. But if it is, well, how do you think about the signals from the buyer behavior and of course, the intent data?
Yeah. Ashley, I think you're up first on this one. I went first last time. You have to go first this time.
Fair. I will take it. Intent signals is something that we've leaned pretty heavily in the last, I would say, just quarter, but something I've used a ton in my career. We use, that there are a lot of different ways to get first and third party intent data. We are actively using G2 right now. And it's been highly actionable for us. And it's, a way for us, it's one of the ways that we can look to see who is engaging at a product level, a category level, or our competitors as well. Like what accounts are actively looking and comparing. It helps us understand from a new logo perspective. There are deals we're not in that we wouldn't have seen if we don't see signals of accounts that are out there hunting and looking around. But also our own customers that are actively looking and comparing to competitors. It helps give a signal to us on, that customer might be shopping. Let's make sure we get ahead of that. So we do use signals internally, but it's also something that we couple with we merge that data with a few other things, including first party data, our own internal behavioral data, things like ICP score. So we kind of triangulate this intent signals with other information we have to better help identify who is more likely, higher propensity to move through the funnel. And I think, again, it's relatively early here in this organization. We've been doing it for about a quarter, but we're still kind of crawl, walk, run. We're still in probably the crawl phase of getting this fully put together. But once we get it stood up, I think there's a lot of SOPs we can put in place to help segment out that, say, 60-70% of demand that's not moving forward, to carve out who really has higher propensity to move forward and treat them differently and isolate them in a different behavior based on a lot of these different signals.
And Ashley, just to clarify, are you talking about those signals being one time when you're scoring and getting someone in a database, or you're continuously monitoring the signals in the world of your leads in order to decide when to show up?
It is ongoing. We use them as they come into us. So we do have, say an integration with G2 where we can see that data coming, back and forth. So we look at it. It does get factored into as we look at our account scoring and our account grading. So it is, a point in time, but we are always utilizing those signals and making adjustments as they change and as they continue to evolve. But I think a lot of the buyer intent signals have been really powerful in us better identifying, especially in our world. We know we're EHS software. It's not at the cutting leading edge of technology. So people aren't, maybe unlike Gabe, who's in AI or has maybe a more exciting product. People that are looking and shopping are highly likely to be in some type of active work stream or project. So we are always looking at those signals on a very regular basis.
I like that. Adam, I'm gonna have to jump in. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. You mind if I go?
Yeah.
He's
Go
like,
for it.
sure. Why not? No, I think this is, we've been talking about intent signals or, buying behavior, at least for a dozen years or so. But I feel like in the last few years, you're seeing some movement that you hadn't seen before. And companies like Sixth Sense and Demand Base have been on this. The challenge I think they've had is, number one, they've really focused on first party intent signal, so the website visitors and the anonymization of finding who comes here, that's awesome. And then you slack the message over to your sales team and they never do anything with it. Like, we've been doing that for 10 years. But I feel like companies are starting to be able to move beyond some of the first party stuff. We actually track 47 different, I like the word signals better than, intent, because I do feel like a signal is something where maybe it has almost nothing to do with us. It's just something they're doing, like they raise funding, they change jobs, they are hiring service reps. They liked one of our competitors' LinkedIn posts. The list goes on and on. I love the G2 one. They visited G2, So some of those aren't intent to buy, but they're signals that maybe we should be tracking because we do believe ultimately statistically it'll lead to like higher buying behaviors. But the challenge has been, can you capture those signals in a way that you can then put it, and I love where Ashley was going, you have your ICP score, but do you have an ongoing and active signal score where you're monitoring and listening to some of these different accounts and all of these different signals? I'm not saying there needs to be 50. I believe there's probably maybe 10 that organizations should really be following. But man, if you see one of those pop, and again, I'm not just talking about website visitors, and I'm not talking about Bombora data about someone visiting some random website, about finding those core signals in your market in a way that you can actually watch them and then start to run campaigns on them. This, I think, is so much different than where we've been in the past. One is the idea of capturing more signals, not just first party. And then the second big thing is being able to act on those signals in a way that isn't that terrible Slack message to a salesperson who will never see it. I think those are going to be the two things that you see really push signal-based marketing into the forefront in the next couple of years.
We've declared we're in a Star Trek episode now. We've gone where no one has gone before. We got no rules. They don't apply anymore. So let's walk through this SOP. So Gabe and Ashley, could we assume we've got our first dot? A signal has been detected where one of the 60% project dead zone folks have now been identified. Let's call it, as an example, they erased capital.
Cool.
Okay, there's an example. We've got the signal. It just happened yesterday.
Yeah.
We got our first dot. Ideal SOP. Now what? Where do we go from here? Your system has now caught it, whatever system caught it. What would be, if you had unlimited employee or resources, where to next? You want to go first, Gabe?
Sure. Yeah, I think I love Ashley, the term crawl, walk, run. So I think organizations need to think about it in kind of those levels. And I think what people have been doing right now is, as I said, and I'm mocking it a little bit, but it's a great place to start. It is using one of these tools to, alert your team that you can basically reach out. So you get a Slack message to a sales rep or a BDR, and they then go find it and they try to do something. Again, I think that doesn't work 80, 90% of the time, but it is a decent place to start. I think the next level is using marketing automation to try to do something automated. This would be like a nurture type program. And it doesn't always work, but especially if they're an inbound, if you had some sort of structured nurture program based on one signal, like you said, funding announcement, why not see if you can tap into that and do something in an automated approach that sends them down the nurture path? And I'd call that the walk step. What I think the organizations who are pushing the boundary, Star Trek wise, Adam, is getting into these, again, I want to use the term carefully, but an AI SDR or an AI agent that would actually be able to, using some of your words, more intuitively be able to capture that information, also understand enough about the company and what's currently happening that they could actually run that nurture sequence in a way that maybe merges, an omni-channel, a email call approach that brings into a couple different aspects, not just the signal, but other data from your CRM, maybe that they had, maybe they were in your sales process before, maybe you have an event coming up and they bring that in as far as inviting somebody. So you're bringing that intuitiveness and that reasoning engine into that run step with that AI agent, and they do ultimately run that signal-based approach. That I really like that crawl, walk, run, and that's where I see organizations in a maturity model moving, and I think most people find themselves right now, in my opinion, at level one, that kind of crawl step.
Ashley, as we go to you and Gabe, let's skip the walk crawl for this conversation. Let's go straight to beyond run. What's next? Sprint. Let's go straight there and walk backwards, because with agentic, it's possible now. It's really a question, like you just described, the signal, marry that with what? A CRM, previous conversations, marry that what? Omni-channel, you're now on LinkedIn and phone calls. Marry that with what? What content is ultra relevant because you know that exact ICP, you just published a YouTube video or Ashley just produced a podcast? What is that magic SOP that would nail it? Ashley, I couldn't resist. I had to jump in. Now to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to add a ton more to Gabe's comment, because honestly, that's exactly where my mind was going, is thinking about the AI agents and augmenting based on, the BDR behavior is, our BDR team and our sales reps and marketing folks, et cetera, there's higher cost associated to them. If we could get a signal, and especially in this example of funding being raised, it's maybe not the hottest signal of buying intent, but it does show there is something that happened within that organization that might signal change that would, give us a reason to reach out. I think using an agent is a perfect way to do these very early preliminary reach outs, to let AI leverage all of the different information you do have to start to see if we can get some movement on that before we put a human that has a much higher cost associated to them against that account and start working and calling and going through Sales Navigator and sending them incentive gifts and all the things that our SDR and BDR teams do. Well, I think using the agent is the perfect. If we could get all the way to the run phase, I would implement that.
Adam, one thought, your sprint word, it just triggered something, so I'll throw it out there. Crawl, walk, run, sprint. I like that. But what I think might be the sprint stage is taking this process and then redoing the structure behind it. So what you have right now in the run phase is, a full marketing and BDR team, and they're using like an augmented approach, almost like a marketing automation tool, but on steroids with an AI agent. What I see companies going in the sprint phase is saying, you know what, we're going to restructure our go-to-market team. You've heard the team term maybe vibe marketer or GTM engineer. And what you're going to see then is one person or a small group of individuals create that whole structure we just talked about. ICP identification, signal eliciting, real-time execution across multi-channel, reporting and analytics around it, with just a core group of individuals that basically changes the go-to-market structure as we've currently known it, with 20 BDRs and 10 demand gen people and 5 marketing marketing ops type people. So maybe the structure in which you run this would be your sprint step. I don't know if you like that, but when you said sprint, that's what I think the next step might be.
I completely agree. At the introduction, I had said complete redesign of the marketing org. It's coming. It's coming. There's one interesting thing before the next question that I'm curious, your take, both of you, is in this hypothetical scenario, are we saying still human in the loop? Is a BDR coming into work and they have a list of messages that have been pre-written, hyper-personalized, omni-channel, and then they go one by one and they execute? Or do you see this as being completely autonomous?
Autonomous. I think you got to go crawl, walk, run. So every organization does, the steps required. And I liked how we were just kind of walking through that. And so that sprint step moves to the autonomous concept. But I do just see there. I think there's always place for humans. And as we were saying in that new design structure, I just don't know if you need a BDR, for example, following up on demo requests anymore. Like we've already been testing an AI agent, and it's phenomenal. I mean, they submit the form and they then start talking with a fully functional reasoning AI agent, and they can schedule the meeting and they can see sales reps' calendars. Like I don't know if you need to like augment that and have a few SDRs do it and a few AI SDRs do that, right? So now, are we there yet? No, but yeah, I think in the near term future, we need to eliminate some of these customer facing roles. They're sometimes hard to hire. They become so expensive. I mean, back in the day, Adam, we were paying SDRs $30K. They're now 80 or 90K. That's not even fully burdened. I mean, I can't afford that in the cost of sale. And so we need to elevate those people to have them do more important tasks. And we need to take some of these things, and I'm using inbound response as one, but we've got to go autonomous on that as fast as we possibly can. Again, are we there? No. But can we get there? Yes.
Well, Ashley, what do you think?
No, I 100% with Adam. I mean, we're not there. And as we talk about this future state, man, I want to sign up for that. I'd like to get there today, but we're certainly not there. And I think for now it's augmented, like using AI and using AI agents along with our sales team and our BDR team. It's augmenting. It's taking a lot of that legwork, a lot of that preliminary just grind work out of the BDR role, and having, we've shifted internally our BDR function to really be, I think traditionally they're very junior, kind of entry level. It's the feeder into sales. We've taken a different approach where they are career focused BDRs that are really skilled at being able to build the right pipeline with the right buyers at the right stage earlier. And so with that shift, I think that there's an opportunity to use those agents to again, like, yes, qualify all the demo requests and get them to answer all of the questions so we know if they're really a viable fit. And then when they're at the right point, we can do the handoff to a BDR, handoff to sales. But there's a lot of activity in the BDR motion right now that could 100% be shifted to an AI agent.
But that is, I got to say, I like where Ashley was saying, like it, as much as I wish I was at that sprint stage, I mean, getting BDRs just using some version of an AI tool like a ChatGPT to clean up their emails and help them better identify, how they should approach somebody, or brainstorm as a co-pilot the best way to personalize a message. Like, that's awesome. Like, for organizations who feel like they're behind, I think to Ashley's point, you're not, because none of us are there. We're all at those early phases. And if you are just doing some of those basics, using AI to have a co-pilot to help your sales or BDR or marketing team, that is awesome. Some of the campaigns my marketing team has come up with, just chatting and interacting with the co-pilot, it's awesome. I think that's a great first step. You should be proud of yourself.
And for those listening, if you are a chief growth officer, a growth role, like, yeah, this is a natural conversation. For those on marketing, remember, these are two CMOs having this conversation, right? And I'm looking at time, and Ashley, you were spot on that we probably need a couple hours. Maybe I should turn this into kind of a Joe Rogan-like experience. We go for 3, 4, 5 hours. Before I let you both go, and this has been like ridiculously awesome conversation. We talked about a perfect SOP in order to create an AI agent that's going to start to solve the project dead zone. Right. So Ashley, if we solve it, it will be Ashley started this on April 22nd, and here it is. I hope it's not years down the road where project dead zone is no longer relevant. But what advice would you give a marketing leader, right, that's just beginning to redesign their playbook? Like, they're thinking about the future of automations, they're thinking about agents. Who isn't? And if they're not, they're a little behind. Let's not kid ourselves. They will be. They're going to catch up. I'll go, Ashley, to you first, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think the advice I would give is to start with your outcome first. What are you trying to solve? I think there's so much innovation in technology, and there's been so many advancements, and a lot of what we talked about today is a lot of exciting things. It's hard for me not to just run it and purchase all these different technologies and tools, but start with your outcome. What are you trying to solve? And then work backwards from there, and don't start with the technology. Don't run to a 6sense or to Manbase or some of the other really expensive programs. Don't chase automation for automation's sake. Get really crystal clear on the problems you're trying to solve and the outcomes that matter the most to your organization, which for us is pipeline creation and conversion, and to treat your automation and AI agents as co-pilots and not shortcuts, and really build playbooks around where they can add real value to repeatable tasks and signal monitoring and all that. So, and I guess lastly, tied to that is bringing your team and your team along for the journey. You want to push forward on a lot of change. Like for me, I came into an organization where we didn't have a lot of technology. Some of these processes and lifecycle marketing and some of these things that are rudimentary that have been in existence for 12 years, 15 years, for us, we are behind the curve. And so we're playing catch up, and I can't get everything done overnight. We've got to bring the team along. We've got to have those one-on-ones and figure out who are the early champions and get them to help drive this innovation forward as a group.
Gabe, I saw you're smiling. I think you're in violent agreement.
No, these are great. This is a fun conversation. What would I say? What would I leave people with? Maybe two things I'd go with. I'd say, start small, but start now. I know some people I talk to, they're a little overwhelmed. There's so many new AI tools, and some of them are waiting for the perfect stack, or maybe waiting for Gen 2. But I do think you can find, as Ashley was saying, like, find a small problem. What outcome are you trying to solve? And maybe go, see if you can solve it. I think there's ways to do that right now. The second one's a little more philosophical, but maybe I'd say, like, stop thinking about AI as a tool and start thinking of it as a teammate. I know that may sound a little bit weird, but there is a mindset shift that's got to happen here. And I think as you wrap your head more around that concept, I think it'll open up new possibilities as to where this really can go. And I think as people grasp that idea, that just opens up the floodgates for new ideas to flow through.
It definitely sounds weird. Like, there's no denying it, right? But it's certainly the future we're heading into, where we're going to have augmented teams.
Yeah.
A hybrid team, not a workplace hybrid, but a hybrid team. Ashley, Gabe, this has been awesome. I appreciate you both. Appreciate the time. For those who are listening, if you got something to say, if you agree or disagree, have a different point of view, go ahead and drop a comment below, and we'll respond shortly. Gabe, Ashley, thanks again, and over now.